Hello and welcome to another episode of All Things Money. I'm Fatima Attarwala and
I'm Ammar.
there's a lot been happening. There's so much happening that's a bit hard to put your mind around it because the country is at war. At that time, to talk about business, to talk about economics, to talk about what is economy, as Ammar keeps pointing out to me, is pointless. We have no numbers and we have no crystal ball to tell us what is happening.
And the country is not at war either.
The country is not at war. We are just being attacked by an enemy country.
These are called skirmishes.
As you can see, there's a lot of differences of opinion in terms of war language as well as the economy. So I was at an event recently at the German consulate, and the representative there said that in the last year, he's seen a significant increase in interest from Germany in terms of trade and investment. In the last 6 months, 5 new companies have come into Pakistan. Bear in mind that these comments were the night before the whole thing started, before the whole Pakistan-India skirmish. So at that time, Pakistan was at a good place. I think that Pakistan was poised for growth, and the upcoming budget would have shown some indication of growing the economy rather than stabilizing the economy. I think one of the reasons for that is that the SBP has been very aggressive in its rate cuts over the last year. Ammar, however, disagrees.
I mean, we are still poised for growth. It's not like there will be no growth because of whatever happened in the last few days. There will be growth. Everything, it's the same. Nothing really has changed structurally. Yes, the growth will be constrained, and it will be constrained because of lack of availability of foreign exchange. Because for every incremental percentage that you grow over 3%, you would need about $8 to $9 billion. And that is why the growth will be constrained. So if you can, let's say, increase either your remittances, which again is another form of Dutch disease, or if you increase your exports, and that is how you can get growth. So growth has completely different fundamentals than what's happening in the last few days. And frankly, Pakistan has always been considered a high-risk jurisdiction, and a lot of whatever's happening is already priced in the overall credit risk and other ratings of Pakistan. If you look at the credit default swap spread, it was maybe around 500 bips about 2 weeks back. Right now, it's around 800, 900. The same spread we've seen as high as 3,000 to 4,000 bips as well. So it's not like the risk has massively elevated. Only 2 years back, we were in a much worse position. So we are in a good place, we are stable, and we will continue to grow. The last few days, it'll be a blip, if anything else.
We're assuming there's going to be a blip because we're assuming that the whole situation will de-escalate. See, if there is war, maybe India can survive the war longer. Economically, Pakistan just does not, as you pointed out, have the reserve to survive it economically, even if you have the military power for it.
So that's the thing. That's why it's such a great deterrent called nuclear and second strike capability. And if we just run a pure game theory simulation on that, it just doesn't benefit anyone. So that's why you will always have some skirmishes, and eventually this will lead to de-escalation. There will not be a full-fledged war. If it will be, might not be here.
We are really hoping there would not be a full-fledged war, but I think if you look at Ukraine, Russia, when the war started, it was not expected to drag out as long as it did.
Ukraine did not have nuclear weapons.
I'm not a war expert, and I'm definitely not a nuclear.
So that's, I think it's important. The context is important here. Why? Because you need to see the balance of power. Nuclear deterrence is a thing. It's been studied over the last many years, and this is why Pakistan developed the bomb. You cannot just say, okay, you know what, this doesn't exist, and consider things in isolation. It's a thing, deterrence is a thing, and that's why we cannot have any kind of extended or elongated war.
So let's look at it a different way. You say that it's a blip, it will not affect the economy. Now, very frankly, for decades since inception of Pakistan has spent a lot on defense. Not as much on education, not as much on health, on development. It's always been defense, and for once I'm so glad that it is, because we have these defense capabilities.
I will fundamentally disagree. I would actually say we underspend on defense. In real terms, our defense budget has actually gone down, whether if you adjust it for inflation or if you adjust it in a dollar-based thing. Our defense budget has gone down. We've got a fairly, let's say we're in a volatile region. I mean, you can say we're not in a volatile region. So you need that base level spending. The problem is in defense spending, and it's not like we don't spend any less on education. If you combine all the education budget,
about 2% of our budget on education.
No, you're not counting. No. That's the fallacy there. You need to look at the provincial numbers as well. Provinces spend a significant amount on education. If anything, we spend more on education per student than, let's say, Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or the southern parts of India, where education levels are much higher than what we have. So this is not a resource problem. We need to reframe that from a resource problem to more of an efficiency problem. It's not like we're not spending money. You look at the education budgets of different provinces. Last I checked, there was more than, I would say, 1.5 trillion rupees that was spent on education. The cost spending per child was much higher than, let's say, Bangladesh or Sri Lanka. And these countries, Sri Lanka is close to 100% literacy rates at this point. Southern India is close to 100% literacy rates. So this is not a resource problem. This is an efficiency problem. This is a training problem. This is how we manage schools or manage education problem. So, I mean, fine, you can just, let's say, for the sake of argument, whatever is available in defense, so you reallocate everything to education. Will that change outcomes? No, because it's an efficiency thing. It's not a resource issue.
So, if we were to make that argument, in the upcoming budget, about almost 1 trillion rupees are being chopped off for development projects because those projects never took off, those 200%.
So, development budget is your classic, let's say it's a window dressing thing. We allocate a lot of amount, but barely any of that is utilized because we don't have the resources. And rightfully so, why should the federal be determining this project needs to be done? It should be done by the provinces, and provinces continue to do those projects. So the whole federal PSDP thing, maybe it should just gradually just siphon it off to the provinces, and the federal shouldn't be undertaking any of those.
So my point was, do you see an increase in defense spending in the upcoming budget given what's happening?
It was already expected to increase, and I think this time
more than the expected because of what happened recently.
Entirely possible.
And it would come at the cost of what?
The cost of nothing. It was already slated to increase. See, that's the thing. I mean, you can say a very lazy argument here is that you say, okay, it is coming at the cost of education and health. No, that is already being covered through NFC allocations. So what is...
But then the NFC allocations have their own arguments, right? Balochistan will always say that we do not get enough.
Everyone's getting enough, but they're not able to show outcomes for that money. I mean, that is where we need to be more critical of the provinces as well. Punjab gets certain allocations, Sindh gets it, Balochistan gets it.
So you're saying Punjab is using its resources more efficiently than Balochistan?
That is correct. I mean, you look at Balochistan, you look at Sindh, what are the literacy outcomes for the last 7 years, 10 years? Post NFC, have they improved? Have they not improved? That is the question we need to ask rather than just asking about what the nominal amount.
So when Balochistan says that we are not educated enough because of federal resources, that's a fallacy.
I mean, they got something in the budget, right? They get NFC allocations every year. It's not like no one gets it. What happens to those allocations? How efficiently is that utilized?
Okay, let's not go into Balochistan. Let's
any province at this point. Any province at this point, all data is available. It's publicly available. It's available in the Economic Survey of Pakistan. One should look at what the enrollment is like for each province, whether out of school students has increased or declined. I can tell you the out of school numbers have actually increased despite being significant increase in overall education budgets. So why is this happening?
I assume that the out of school children have increased because the economy has declined so much that people do not have the money to have the luxury to let the children.
So again, that is a state problem, right? That is an efficiency problem. If again we're looking at
that's a poverty problem.
No,
that's a taxation problem as well because people do not have enough money to.
So it's simple,
and not being in a growth.
Education spent per child, that is a metric we can all agree on. Pakistan is, in the case of Pakistan, that's worse than Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and lots of parts of southern India. We can improve that to Sri Lanka's level, right? I mean, these are not rich countries. We're fairly in the same range, but how you use that available rupee, how you use that available resources, how efficiently you do that, that is what the outcome really looks like.
So basically you're saying that the provinces have sufficient resources given by the federal government, they're just not using it efficiently across the board.
That is correct.
Okay. So coming back to the war, which you think is a blip, and coming back to the budget in which you expect an increase in defense, which is overdue, you say that that will not have an impact on the other heads like education or health or public spending.
You're saving a lot of money with lower interest rate expenses. You have made like interest rate, last time budget happened, everything was budgeted with around maybe 18%, 20% rates. Now that has gone significantly down. So you have a lot of room available that can be utilized.
And that room will be allocated to?
Some of that room can be allocated to defense. Some of that room can be allocated to other current expenditures. So a lot of reallocation will happen.
So recently, the finance minister said that the growth rate is 6%, with the interest rate coming down, and the entire argument that you said, that we still have that room to increase expenditure on different heads, you see that growth happening, if not now, then 2 years, 3 years from now?
I think this is where we started the program. Pakistan has structurally 95% plus of our GDP essentially consumption. That consumption is driven by imports, and those imports require dollars. So till the time we have sufficient availability of dollars, excess dollars, as I said earlier, for every 1% additional growth, you need around $8 billion. So if you're moving from 3% to 6%, that's maybe around, you need 24 billion extra dollars every year to do that. So this extra delta of $24 billion, you can either borrow, which you cannot because the cost of financing is very high. You can either increase exports by $24 billion every year, or you can increase your remittances by, or maybe you can do a split between remittances and exports. And eventually you need to move away from a consumption-oriented model to an investment-oriented model, so that you can increase your exports. So growth is largely dependent on how much dollar availability exists rather than anything else.
So exports, if we focus on that and not remittances, which was sky high for a whole bunch of reasons, we can bring in the whole Trump tariffs deal and what's happening. Right now, US-UK had a whole deal. That was, I think, the first deal of Trump, at least in this presidency. UK was imposing around 5% tariffs on the US. Now it's imposing around 1%. And that is probably why, possibly why, the Trump went for the sky-high tariffs to force countries to negotiate deals. In an earlier podcast, we discussed the possibility of what Pakistan can do to counter that. Since then, have you changed your views?
No, I think it's fine. See, Pakistan, there's so much exports Pakistan do, right? You need to understand that there is a physical limitation for that. It's not like a magical potion where you say, okay, you know what, we increase exports by 100% tomorrow. You need to invest in infrastructure, you need to invest in capacity.
So when we say invest in infrastructure, do we continue focusing on textiles?
No, we need to diversify away from textile. What is a core competitive advantage? Does anyone even know what our competitive advantage is?
If I were to quote Ehsan Malik of BBC, he said we have land, we have people, and that's basically, by land we mean minerals which are not getting mined, people.
Who said minerals are not getting mined? Minerals are getting mined. See, that's the thing. Minerals are getting mined. You have tons of agriculture you can do. You can do a lot of efficiency there. So that is where your core competence lies. Even in
which minerals are getting mined in the level of, like, say, 24 billion or even close to 24 billion.
So that is the thing. There will always be a lag in exports, but you've got to invest right now.
Are we investing right now? Everything that happened to Recordec in the past and the entire fine that we had to pay and the entire. Is that in any way improved?
I think we have been this is the most advanced we've ever gone in that direction, and that project is
being advanced is not the same thing as reaching the finish
line. No, again, financially close for these things, it takes a while. It cannot happen overnight.
So when we say it takes a while?
It takes a few years. I think that the first ton of copper will just come in maybe like 28, 29 or even 30 at that point. But once it's out, it's a chain reaction. I mean, the coal is a classic example. We've had coal and there were plans to extract coal from thrust since early 90s. But the first ton of coal actually came in 2020. And now we're generating 2,600 megawatts from the. People still cannot believe that we're using coal, but it's just generating a lot of electricity and a lot of cheap electricity at that. So you need to start working on these things. You need to invest in the real economy, in manufacturing things, in producing things, in extracting things, rather than just trading amongst one another.
Absolutely. And all of these are medium-term, long-term plans, 5 years, 10 years down the road. What if you talk about the 1 year down the road?
Nothing. You just keep stabilizing. A very simple example is post-East Asian crisis.
When you talk about stabilizing, I belong entirely to the salaried class. I think you do too. So stabilizing for me means that the status quo of taxes on the salaried class stays. And that is something that I'm hoping that will change in the upcoming budget.
Sadly, it's very sad. It's tragic at this point. But post the European Union crisis, European Union debt crisis, Greece was in the worst possible shape. Sadly, real incomes in Greece had to go down and the economy stabilized. It improved. Now Greek bonds, Greece is as safe as Germany at this point, because this is what stabilization looks like.
So you think that real taxes will continue?
Real wages will continue to go down. I'm very sorry to break this to everyone out there.
You should give us some hope.
No, there is no hope. The only hope is that you fix whatever is wrong.
In the
A lot of
in the
it.
short term, in the next 1 year, what are the low-hanging fruits? Be it the tax policy office that differentiates, that has a different
The low hanging fruit essentially is making it easier to invest in the economy, making it easier to invest in productive
and you
capacity.
don't think drones falling on us will affect that?
No, it's not. I mean, drone fell. Did you see anything? Did it affect your life? Even the internet was working fine.
For a change, X got unblocked, which is amazing. That is the one
There was
silver
a power
lining.
breakdown. Everything, food delivery everything was working fine. I mean, it's just fine.
It's fine for us because we are sitting here. But if you look at international media, the narrative is very different right now.
So that's a narrative problem. That's not the real economy problem. That's a narrative problem.
Is that a low-hanging fruit that we fix the narrative and get investment in? And if we fix the narrative, how do we do that?
I mean, you're in media, I'm not. So, you know, there are ways to do it. There are ways to improve your image.
I think the way to improve the narrative of Pakistan is to have more Pakistanis sitting in international organizations that can speak English fluently. Now it seems that I'm trying to.
Yeah, we are doing that
right
exactly
here.
right now.
Yeah. So, and then to get the word out there, the Karachi is not
So that's a different thing, right? That's more like a soft power projection.
So we need that soft power.
We need that, but if it's not being done, I mean, I'm not the soft power expert at this one. I mean, that's the thing with the Chinese as well, right? You don't see a lot of Chinese soft power.
But they don't need the soft power when they're that strong.
No, that is the problem. They need that soft power. Everyone needs soft power.
If everybody needed a soft power, I would argue then Trump is going absolutely away in the
And
opposite direction.
that is a fundamental problem.
You don't think that will help the economy, the US economy?
No, again, these things affect things on a longer term, right? I mean,
right now,
we know we have.
The lack of Trump's soft power has allowed it to negotiate a better deal with UK.
So again, that's a thing, right? It's on a bilateral basis. It's on a case-to-case basis. You cannot.
I mean, we have moved from soft power as a whole in terms of geopolitics and global politics. We have moved away from soft power to not soft power to being a hard power.
We've been hard power since forever at this point.
We've not been a power.
We are a power.
How are we a power?
Why not?
Why are we a power?
Again, I'll just go back to nuclear deterrence.
We are the only power we have, the only thing we keep saying again and again is nuclear deterrence.
That is all that
Will we
matters.
actually press that button? I don't want to know that.
You don't want to press a button. Just having the ability to press it is what matters. I think the ability is more important than actually pressing it.
Okay. Bringing it back to the economy rather than the theoretical debate of whether we press the button or not, what do you see changing in the next 6 months or in the next year at all?
No, things will improve. You
just said there was no hope.
No, I said, I mean, if you're expecting 6% growth from 3% in 12 months, it's not maybe 3.5%. Then next year we do 4%, and then we do 4.5%.
Every time we touch the 5% mark, we go into the boom bust cycle because we started
borrowing. Why? This is exactly why. Because we go from 3% to 5%.
Even now, if we have EVs, we are
borrowing. We do it through borrowing. We don't have to borrow. If you need to generate your own dollars,
so
you need to
keep going through the same cycle again and
again.
And
this time around,
dollars are remittances, dollars are exports, dollars are investments.
And this is why this time around we're not doing that. Else we would have had a boom phase and it would have been
no, I'm very glad that saner minds have prevailed and that we have been in the stabilization phase for that long. But is it not time for us to loosen the reins a little bit? At least the finance minister has said no more for the salaried class. Has he?
No, that is fine. No more for salary. That's great. If anything, overall taxes on business should reduce as well. Taxes need to be rationalized. There is no doubt about that. We're one of the highest taxes in the region, I would say the world at this point. If you look at the effective tax, that needs to go down and the tax net needs to expand. There is no doubt or dispute on this, and things are moving in that direction.
Exactly. How we have the agricultural income tax, we have the Tajir Do scheme, which we have I think pretty much not materialized. Even the agriculture income tax, even if the provinces are on board in theory, you yourself pointed out. Look at education. We have
agriculture. People think agriculture is a loss-making initiative at this point. How do you tax something that's loss-making?
Okay, so if Tajir Do scheme is not working out and the agricultural tax scheme is not working out, then how are we broadening the tax base? You
need to broaden. There are a lot of people who don't pay their taxes. There are a lot of businesses out there.
Yes, there are with sectors.
Even within the tax sector.
And why are they not being taxed? Again,
they are. See, that is the thing. Again, it's not a magic potion.
We have no magic potion. There's no such
thing. Things happen overnight, and slowly and steadily these things improve. You have to give it some consistency. You have to give it some time.
What changes do you see in the upcoming budget that will help towards the slowly improving?
I think budget is, I don't really believe in budget doing anything, To be honest, it's just one of those things that happen and everyone just
Like
claps.
Iran, Pakistan, and the 5Es?
Yeah, but it's a nice, cute way of doing things, but actual action happens post-budget. When you're adjusting things, when you're adjusting rates, when tariffs are being adjusted, so on and so forth. If anything, a good budget would be one which reduces overall tariffs on imports so that you can import more intermediate
tariffs part of the
goods.
budget?
Pakistan, yeah. Overall taxes are part of the budget, so that Pakistan, you can actually importing intermediate goods and export value-added goods. Right now, it makes absolutely no sense because we have one of the highest tariffs in the region, or I would say in the world at this point. So, you know,
On what products?
on everything, on every intermediate good, we've got very high tariffs, and that is where exports cannot be competitive.
So you're saying basically reduce the tariffs on raw materials and inputs. But then we should also stop exporting raw materials such as yarn, cloth, great cloth.
You're preaching to the choir, and that is how it should be. So you need an overhaul of how things are done. You effectively, I always say this, everyone, you need an industrial policy at this point. We don't have a coherent industrial policy.
Absolutely.
If there is one thing that I would want to see, then everyone would want to see is a coherent industrial policy that builds upon whatever our core competitive, or what our core advantages are, and just really doubles down on that. So you can just move beyond.
That's what PBC,
Excel.
OICC, and a lot of bodies have been saying.
And nothing. They've done literally zero, zilch, nada on
I mean, a
industrial
body
policy.
does not have the ability to do it, only the government does.
No, but they can propose something.
They have been proposing something.
No one's ever proposed an industrial policy. See, that's the thing.
I would think PBC would
The
disagree
issue with
that.
these bodies, the issue with these bodies is, I mean, I don't really care at this point. The issue with these bodies is they only talk about their members or what their members want to say. So if one of the members is, let's say, making a lot of money.
But a body like PBC and OICC, doesn't it have members from a lot of sectors?
So that is the thing, right? They cannot do what a sovereign can do. They cannot be as independent or as objective. Sovereign can be, they will always be representing interests of the members.
If they are presenting an industrial policy, it is the sovereign's job to make that industrial policy, no?
So that is the thing. The sovereign should step up and make an industrial policy.
Yes, it should. That is what we are hoping for.
So see, that's the thing. When you say, okay, these organizations, every lobbying group will always lobby for its own members, and this is literally why.
But when the members are a whole bunch of sectors, and those sectors are employing people like you and I, then yes, let them lobby, let them have an industrial policy.
And that is fine, but not necessarily the growth of that particular sector serves the overall sector at large.
Okay, fair enough. We need an industrial policy. If you're not supposed to listen to bodies, then who are we supposed to listen to? Who is the government supposed to listen to?
I mean, the government's supposed to listen to everyone and do what's right for the citizens of the country.
Absolutely, and part of that is listening to experts from bodies. Again, we are going round and round in the circle in a very pedantic argument. Going back to the industrial policy and the need to have industrial policy, if we look at, for example, cotton and Trump's tariffs, we are one of the highest cotton importing countries in the world.
Should we be importing cotton at this point? That is the biggest question.
US cotton is of higher quality because it's long staple compared to Pakistani cotton.
Why can't we do that here?
Right now we need to so the argument, one of the argument is that to appease Trump, we can import more cotton.
That's cute.
A lot of things are cute for you today.
We can just import a lot of LNG as well from them. We can import oil as well. See, that's the thing.
This is again is that not that you believe PBC maybe, but according to them, it costs $3 per barrel extra if we were to import oil from the US, assuming Texas to be the point of origin.
And that is
fine.
No, see, that's what I'm saying.
An
we
increase
picked
of
on
listen,
you talked about cotton. Increasing imports from cotton, a very specific spiritual way of looking at things, fed by a certain lobbying group.
Soybean oil. Other than these three, what can we import from the US?
I don't know. I'm not a US expert.
You're not a US expert, then if you're not listening to bodies, then who would you listen to? The sovereign?
So that is the thing. There must be something else other than three things,
what?
right? Like, I don't know, add Facebook payments to that. That is an import, right?
Importing services.
Importing services.
Right now, Trump is not focusing on services.
So that is the thing. Did anyone talk about that? Because there is no lobbying group that can talk about that. So that is.
And what services from the US are we not importing? Isn't Netflix something that we import from there?
Yeah.
Exactly. So we are already doing that.
Every
what
single
other service can we import from the US?
I don't know. Is anyone even counting that?
The services? Okay. So again, the 1.3 trillion. Deficit that the US has, 1 trillion is from manufacturing, 0.3 trillion is from services. They are focusing on manufacturing. We are focusing on manufacturing because that's what we export.
Fine, just import more cotton, big deal. Then what?
What do you mean then what?
Then what? You can do it, will that result in
Cotton
more?
and soybeans?
So I think, see, I mean, if you want to import more cotton, great. That's what I said. Your tariffs need to be reduced on intermediate goods. That's logic, and some kind of evaluation needs to be done whether it leads to more output. If it does, then why not?
Okay, so we are making that argument that if we import more from the US, not oil, but perhaps cotton and soybean, because the US, Trump is focusing on agriculture, perhaps we will get favorable tariffs rather than the 26%, I think 26%, 29% that was slapped. India, on the other hand, got 26%. Now, there was this entire narrative that with the with the China-US trade war, perhaps India is the one that will benefit the most, that some of that manufacturing will shift to India. With everything that is happening in India, with the IPL being suspended, with their planes being shot down, do you think that will still happen?
See, I mean, business decisions are taken over a long timeline, right? Apple will still be moving its manufacturing facility from China to India, regardless of whether IPL gets shut down or not. So these
do you
decisions.
think that if this war continues, it's not in India's
It's not a war; it's a skirmish.
Do you think the skirmish continues? It's not in
See,
India?
if it continues for an extended period, everyone loses here. So that's why it's not going to continue.
Why has it continued as far as it has?
It's barely 4 days at this point. There was nothing happened last night. It was boring.
It was boring that nothing happened last night?
Nothing happened last night. You've done it, like, people just started.
I'm very happy that it was boring. I would like it to continue
That's exactly.
to stay boring.
So people have de-escalated on both sides, and eventually it'll be fine soon. Flights have already started operating.
So flights have started operating, this entire 4-day skirmish is a blip in Indian economy and Pakistan economy, and that will not change any path whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
So no country will think twice of going to India. No country will
So
think
they
twice
know
of going to
already
Pakistan.
that Pakistan is a high-risk jurisdiction. I mean, if you see,
I don't remember the last time a drone came as close to Karachi.
It's a drone. Did you see that drone?
No, I did not see that drone.
It was useless.
I would not want to see a useless drone fall on top of me.
It won't fall on top of you.
And my
You'll
kid's
see it
school
before
got
coming.
closed because of the drones.
I mean, that is your kid's school problem. It shouldn't have closed down.
I think that to downplay something that has caused both the countries so much.
So I mean, why would you close down a city of more than 20 million people over a drone?
We have not closed down.
Exactly.
Some schools have closed
exactly.
Down.
So
there is
fear
that
is the thing. No, I mean the state of fear. It's about how much you feed into it, right?
Okay, let's bring it to the economic discussion. If there's fear in the economy, even if it's non-warranted, if there's fear in the economy, investors which are already worried of Pakistan will not
see again. As a Pakistan is a fairly high-risk jurisdiction anyway. Whatever's happening right now, it's not like this is anything new here. Whoever
something which is high risk becomes high risk.
No. Whoever is operating here is aware of these risks. So it's not something that just came out of the blue. It's already priced in. It's already baked in. The IRRs we offer, the risk guarantees we offer. The skirmish
should not affect it economically. The IMF review that is going to come up, that will affect us.
Why will that affect us?
The IMF review will not affect us. If you do not pass the IMF review, that will not affect us.
Why will we not pass it?
We will pass it. We hope to pass it. But there have been in the past times that was very difficult to appease the IMF.
And again, that was a time when we had severe solvency and liquidity issues on the external front. Yeah. Even if you're not, those very ambitious targets anyway, when everyone agreed, okay, you know what, you'll cut down some PSDB, suddenly you'll be in order. The real thing that matters is the budget deficit and the primary deficit. That's fine.
So going forward, it's all business as usual.
It is business as usual as we speak right now.
That's, I suppose, a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, see, there is panic, there will be fear, but it's how much you let it affect you. If you're going to just watch television all day long, obviously you will just be fearful.
I think when there are drones falling, even if you think the drones are not scary, I think people do tend to watch television a lot to see whether there are more drones falling.
So, I mean, that is their problem. They need to pick up a better hobby.
If there was a one take from the entire conversation is that the war has had no impact on the Pakistan economy, no impact on the Indian economy, and we'll go through the IMF review and that will also have what?
Nothing, it's fine, everything's fine.
Nothing will have any impact.
See, I mean, does the last few days have any effect on your primary deficit or your primary balance? No.
If we go forward and we buy more planes, more
You're not going to go to a market and say, okay, I want to...
We're not going to go, we're talking about the medium term.
Two planes right now. You're not going to do that, I'll give you 2 planes, 2 of the drones, 3 of the... You know, it's not food panda.
I'm just saying, in the medium term, if defense spending
In the medium
increases
term.
in real terms, would it not affect?
In the medium term, right now, the review that you're talking about is for the next few quarters. That's it. So the timelines for everything is different. In the medium
So
term, if you are fiscally responsible, you would want to generate more tax revenue to fund this.
Again, if we are generating more tax revenue, something the government has been trying, then that comes to the same taxing the already taxed, which is something that we don't
and
want.
that is what needs to change. That is why the
We
overall
have been
scope needs
saying
to,
broaden the tax revenue.
and that is literally the only way forward. And that's the only way
And
forward.
we have been saying broaden the tax, and we have been saying digitization. Both things have had very limited results.
Again, you need to give it some time and consistency. See, you cannot expect better results by doing this, making the same mistakes again and again. Let's say digitization. Digitization is not a turnkey solution here. Digitization, they can digitize your payments, but there are 10 other things that need to fall into place. I think we've discussed this earlier as well, how a lot of transactions simply happen outside the banking channel. You can digitize whatever you want, but if there's an informal economy, it doesn't come into the formal economy, you can't do much about it. So that is a completely different problem to crack.
And higher taxes incentivize the informal economy.
There you go. So you need to balance this out, and someone will hopefully balance this out. And because that's literally the only way forward.
So, again, in a nutshell, nothing has changed. Nothing will change in the next few quarters. It's all business as usual. This was just a skirmish. India will move on. Pakistan will move on. We need to just control the narrative, which is a soft power, and soft power is not that important.
I mean, it's business as usual. That's all I'm going to say at this point.
So let's just end it at that. It's business as usual over the next few quarters, at least.
Yeah, at least. And if anything, I hope we just move away. The only thing that matters, if you ask me what's one thing that matters to me, is essentially how you move away from a consumption-oriented economy to an investment-oriented economy.
Because which is something we have been trying for a long time now.
We haven't been trying at all.
We have been saying we have been trying for a long time.
Not even saying. Again, I come back to the industrial policy point. There is no industrial policy in the country. How can you expect any kind of investment to happen?
I am pretty sure that I've been writing articles on how we should move away from consumption
so
orientation
I've been talking, right?
Yeah.
We've been mental about it.
That's what he's saying. We've been saying about it.
But again, you need to keep pushing it. You need to keep pushing the narrative. You need to fight the good fight.
That is the government's job that you're part of.
Keep fighting the good fight.
So let's hope we continue fighting the good fight economically rather than through skirmishes.
Just keep fighting.
Just keep fighting. Let's let be the message. Just keep fighting.